So Tony, how's it going, man?
Hey, Jordan, can you hear me?
I got you here. You got
It,
me?
good. Yes, sir, loud and clear. Yeah, man, it's going awesome. It's going awesome. It has been a really awesome week. How about for you?
Um, I've had a few weeks where I've kind of just been super heads down, like roll out of bed and walk the 10 steps to my desk and then, make it downstairs for dinner type thing. But it's been good. It's been exciting work. I think we're going to talk a bit about more about that later on. So this is what we're doing, right? Like we're here. So we've talked about doing something like this for quite some time. We want to change up the format a little bit. The podcast isn't going anywhere. It's it's going to keep going on. We're still doing it, but we wanted to add some flair, add some change, and try something new. So here we are. Right now, this is a live streaming on Twitter and on YouTube. And I imagine we will add more as time goes on. Twitch, I think, is on the list of ones that we want to add. Eventually, we'll add where it makes sense. I already see comments from Donald Sharp and Chris Cummings in YouTube, so they're chatting about gnomes. So at least there's a couple of people watching. Um,
What so how do people get to see this, right? Does it just show up at the top of their feed on Twitter?
so on Twitter, yeah, it just shows up. So a tweet goes out from the Network Collective account, and so if you're just
Hmm.
happen to be on Twitter, like you'll see it's there. I don't fully know, honestly, how it works for like staying at the top. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't
Okay.
know if it keeps promoting it or what it does. I do know, like I've seen a couple others. CTO advisor, Keith, right?
Hmm.
When he's
Yeah.
done some live streaming on Twitter, and when every time I'd go on, it seemed to be near the top. So maybe it does. I have no idea. We'll find out. Really, it's just about getting it to where where it's valuable. Donald Sharp said it is there.
A-
So
And if people want to interact with us, how do they have to use hashtag on Twitter, hashtag Network Collective?
that's one way. So hashtag Network Collective on Twitter will get tweets in front of our face. We've got a tool here that pulls that in. And then also, if you comment on the YouTube live video, we'll see it in here as well. I'm seeing comments coming from YouTube live. So, and so like if you are watching and you have something interesting, you want us to talk about something specific, whatever. If you have a question for either one of us or have a topic you'd like to see us discuss, let us know one of those ways, because what we'll do is we can definitely pull that in, and the more interactive we make this, the better. Like I think it's part of the. I'm always nervous to like promote that because you never know. I mean, it's 8 o'clock on what? It's a Wednesday today, right? So most
Yeah.
people are sitting down and watching. I don't know. I don't know what's on Wednesday nights. I don't watch much TV, but
No
um,
one watches TV. Everyone just streams.
no,
You know
that's
what's
not
on
true.
Wednesday night? Whatever you want from Netflix. That's what's on Wednesday night.
It's true. That is true. Who actually watches the shows? So yeah.
Like,
So it shows up there, and we'll the more interactive we can make it, the better. But if people don't want to, that's fine too. We'll keep doing what we're doing. So let's start off.
yeah, I mean,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I was just gonna say, why do we do this? And even before starting recording tonight, I was thinking to myself earlier, like, you know, why are we gonna try something new like this? And I realized, you know what? You know why I do this? I do it because it's fun.
That's right.
Just like why do I ride a skateboard? Why do I go do some hobbies outside of the house? Because it's fun, because I enjoy it, and this is fun, and I love chatting with you guys and hearing from the community, and I'm always learning from everyone who laid stone before me. It's awesome.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So I think the thing to know about this specific live stream, right, is the fact that this is a completely new tool set for us. I've never used it. This is our trial. The reason why it's just Tony and I, and we don't have a guest on or something along those lines, is because I didn't want to embarrass a guest with our first run figuring this stuff out. So I fully expect to face plant on a couple things here today. We've already had our first. We wanted to be able to share screens, and our plan for doing so didn't quite work out the way we wanted to. So we got to go back to the drawing board on that. But
We'll
um,
make it happen. But first of all, let's give Jordan a round of applause for pulling this off.
It's
Jordan got all this software, all the streams, everything plugged in. It's on my end from what I'm seeing. This is amazing, Jordan. You've done an incredible amount of work prepping for this.
Thank you. This is the fun part of running any type of media, at least to me. I love building things. And so the idea of going through and figuring out the logistics of how to make it happen and, you know, how to do it well. Like just like with the podcast, you continually, you know, iterate and make things better as you learn and you grow and you adapt. But I always like to start at a pretty decent baseline. I don't like to start like really rough. So there's a lot of research that goes into it. This has been an idea that's been in the back of my head for a long time. Like this is not a new idea. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, coming through and being able to deliver on that and do a decent job at it, I think is important. And so I do appreciate that. It is kind of awkward to say, hey, applause when it's just the two of us sitting here chatting. Because I'm not going to applaud myself. Audience? No, I didn't hear the audience. I was supposed to get. I was supposed to get sound clips.
The audio. Yeah. Yes, you need to get the applause button, the canned laughter and the applause.
That's right.
Definitely.
That's right. So,
yeah, so this is very cool. This is very exciting, and we hope to be able to bring guests in, both planned and perhaps unexpected, but this is our trial run, and I think it's pretty cool. Audio is looking good, video quality is looking good. I know you got some different layouts for camera views. It's pretty cool. I enjoy it.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to it. Enough kind of introspection. Let's start. I mean, the whole idea of this about it, as well as we want to make it less formal than the show, right? So in the show, you know, right. There's planning that goes into it. Not to say that there's not planning that goes into something like this, but there's planning that goes into it, and we're trying to pack a very specific topic into 45 minutes. That's the idea behind the podcast. And so, you know, we ask guests to come on and we come up with an outline and we come on and have a conversation, and we don't script the podcast. Like it's not a scripted thing. But it is very much a structured thing, and you know there's a very specific format, and that's not what we're doing here. So in here, it's meant to be a bit more conversational. It's a bit even less structured. The idea is to come in, and if there's you know something cool we've been working on, or something to talk about, or something interesting going on in the industry, there's not going to be like one topic. Now with that, you know, like what does that mean in the long run? So is it just a live stream that just sits there? You know, and someone has to watch, you know, 90 minutes to 2 hours of us just going on and on and on. I mean, I guess you could if you want to. That may be available. That's not the idea. I think ultimately what we're looking for is to, you know, have specific conversations in these where we can pull those nuggets out and have, you know, 2 to 5, maybe 7 minute long clip on a specific topic, something that's going on, you know, an insight about something that's either happening or something that's you know, that's that we've learned along the way. They might be relevant and timely, or they might be more broadly focused on career and things we've learned along the way on the long scale, right? but it's not about, you know, like one specific topic. And so I think the ultimate output out of these, if you don't watch the live stream, like if you don't come on and do it in real time and participate, is that there's going to be short clips. There's going to be interesting moments. Yeah. We're going to have guests on, and we're going to ask them probing questions about, you know, like what their experience is like, what their soapboxes are, what do they care about, what is the thing that they're passionate about, and try to extract those types of moments, and then get those moments down to a more condensed format so that it's easier to consume. I think that one of the things that I've learned with COVID, right, running a podcast is there was a huge dependence on the fact that people had to commute. Chris has asked us, can we do reactions to Nanog Flame Wars? I caught in passing that there was a Nanog Flame War today, but I don't know. I'd be curious what it's about. We'll see if we get there, Chris. I'll let you know. So anyway, we'll take those things. But before we get into any specific topics or anything broadly, Tony, it's one of these things that like we do this. I mean, we're approaching 8 months now, right? That you've been co-hosting with me That's on right. Network Collective. That's You've been doing it for a while now. Our interaction is
and Donald doesn't even know who I am.
Yeah, Donald doesn't even know who you are. We're gonna bring Donald on to give him a hard time later, I think. But
I hope
so. Assuming everything works well. But you know, like our interactions are, you know, the few minutes before a podcast, and primarily through a Slack screen, and then, you know, as often as we can, we try to get together to have a meeting, right? Just to kind of plan some things out. But that's harder said than done sometimes to get those things coordinated, because this is all volunteer for us, right? Like we're not,
it is,
you know, this isn't our job. So it's just making it all fit. That's all nights and weekends and whatever else. And so this is a good opportunity. It's just the two of us and we don't have any structure. So I think I want to start, Tony, by talking about stuff you're working on right now. I think it's a good opportunity, because I think that so often, like, we as hosts or people sitting behind the mic, like, we come structured looking to ask people questions about what they're doing. It doesn't always come out like with the things that we're actually working on. Like, I have a full-time gig outside of this where I go and I do things. You do as well. We don't talk about it. I want to know, what is it you've been doing the past week, the past 2 weeks? Like, what's up?
Yeah. So I'll give you from two perspectives. At work, my work sort of went through a reorg. So I'm joining a new team, and with that comes learning new people, new processes, new cuts to the business that I had never previously touched before. And that's pretty exciting. And I'm just trying to get sort of spun up with that. So I don't have a lot to offer to the table story-wise, but starting in our company produces a couple of software products and a couple of hardware products. And so I've joined the product directorate, and it's sort of the bridge between research and development and sales, just to sort of, and it's all networking focused stuff, network and security focused stuff primarily. And so I'm looking into that. Personally, I've always been a security guy. In fact, that's why I got into networking. All the way from CCNA, I was looking at network security. And so that's always been something that has just absolutely fascinated me. And over the past couple of weeks, I've been doing a home network makeover. So you guys see this beautiful backdrop behind me. I spared no expense. That's a bed sheet I got from the closet. And that's because I'm in a workshop, and my workshop is out back of my garage. And the reason I'm out here is because ever since we started working from home, I went from sort of room to room to room through my house trying to figure out the best place to work. And with the kids doing homeschool, my wife is home. You know, we have a nanny who's taking care of our youngest. The house is absolutely chaos. So I kept trying to get further and further away. So now I'm all the way out here in the workshop. And the stuff behind me looks kind of janky. But because I'm out here in the workshop, the Wi-Fi doesn't really reach out here, at least not as reliably as I'd like it to. So I went and bought a couple of extra access points. I got a Juniper EX 4300 48 port PoE switch on eBay. Even though, you know, I'm a Cisco certified guy, I have always loved Juniper switches, basic Juniper access switches. I touch them frequently. I just really like them. They're really reliable. And I don't touch them as frequently as I'd like to. I don't know the Juniper basics. So that's why I wanted to go and buy a Juniper switch. So I got the Juniper switch in there. I ran cables all through my house, through the attic, through the walls of the basement. So I got all the wires tucked away. You know, you can't see any of them. It's a semi-professional job. And I was able to put an access point out here near the garage. So everything that you're seeing now is coming off of that access point. And another one on the other side of the house, just to give a little better coverage. And that's been a lot of fun. That's been something that, you know, you always want to like tinker and like upgrade your house, you know, with like the latest and greatest. But like, how far are you willing to go? And for me, it was just out of necessity. And with the addition of the Juniper switch, I completely gutted my network closet. I call it the network closet. It's this little room in my basement. And I took everything out, decabled everything, cleaned all of the shelves, and sort of re-put stuff back on shelves in a better order, recabled it. And so now everything is fed off of PoE. I got rid of 4 PoE injectors. They're out the door. Yeah, it's been a busy couple of days. Now, because of COVID and because we're all working from home, doing school from home, you know, the nanny stuff on the internet, I can't do this stuff during the day. uh, I have to wait till, you know, I have SLAs to meet here, you know, as I think we all do. So I have to do my work here at night. So taking the network down and recabling and reconfiguring a switch and getting it all plugged back in and making it all work on the first try was a huge success. But I had to do it from like midnight till 3 in the morning, you know, to make sure that the
Your
next
outage
morning.
window. Oh, that's hilarious.
Exactly. So everyone can do school and stuff the next day, you know, and people would say, well, why didn't you do it on the weekend? Well, I did. It was Sunday midnight till 3 a.m. Monday morning. so, so I had to get everything ready for school. So anyhow, yeah. So that's what I've been doing is like my little hobby here at home, keeping me busy, was upgrading my home network. And you know what is funny? It's like my home network, we're on about a 3 to 5 year refresh cycle.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So there were just some things we had to upgrade and get rid of. You know, had to get some new access points, a new switch. So
I have to ask you a question.
Also, I wanted to show you guys. I also wanted to say that we were going to do a screen of some of the stuff that I've been doing for network visibility here at my home network, but the screen sharing wasn't working. So Jordan, I did drop 2 screenshots in the Network Collective Slack. If you wanted to bring those up a little later, you could, but working through that has been really awesome. So I got my router sending net flow. I'm spanning all of my traffic off of the switch. I got it going to a full PCAP. I got it going to an IDS. So I got a ton of visibility on the network, and it's just really awesome to be able to sit back here in the workshop and see what everything is doing out there on the network. And if no one has ever done that, let this be like the one takeaway out of my ridiculously long story. Go look what's on your network. Just do one thing and collect logs from one device. You'll be surprised something. There will be something you will see and you'll go, what? Why is that doing that? And if you have the kind of visibility that I have, and there's even more to do, you get to see a lot of stuff that's going on. You're like, why are these devices talking to each other? What is this protocol? You know, what are they doing? You know, how does the Google Nest communicate with my phone? You know, you get to see sort of how that works, and I'm just starting to understand that. I really want to break it down, but yeah. So that's been keeping me busy for the last 2 weeks, man. I've been working on day and night.
So this is my question to you. So I think there's 2 types of engineers, right? There's the engineer where their home network is their lab. This is where they do their playing, and where they do whatever. And then there's the other engineers. I'm going to call these. I don't know. I don't even know what title I'd put it. I fit in this, so I'm careful to apply to a title because it's going to apply to me as well. But those where the home network just needs to work, right? So I feel like there's 2 approaches to doing your home network, and for me, I don't have enterprise gear in my house, networking gear, like because I don't want to have to maintain enterprise gear. I work doing that all day, every day. Now I have prosumer gear, right? Like I have decent, capable consumer, built for the home type gear, but I'm not planning out, you know, wireless architectures with, you know, multiple APs with clean air, or, you know, getting into deploying Mist or something, you know, like. By the way, if Cisco or Juniper or whoever wants to send me a bunch of APs to put in my house, I would deploy them. Don't get me wrong. But for me, like, it's just about simplicity. It's about something that works and works consistently. And so, like, I don't like my home being a lab. Maybe when I was younger, but the amount of times that I've had to scramble to fix the thing because the thing we wanted to do on the internet, which is becoming even more important, right? The thing we wanted to do on the internet wasn't available because I was mucking around with my lab, which just happened to be my production network at home. Right. And so like as soon as we started being able to emulate, effectively emulate, I've had no gear at home. I've got no, I have a server, and that was just recently added, and that's mostly for Network Collective. Like, it's mostly just to have some resources to do some things with Network Collective. If I wasn't doing Network Collective, I wouldn't even have a server in my house. I'd run it in the cloud or something. And so, you know, like you said, you went out and bought a Juniper switch. I do have one piece of like enterprise kit, and that's a compact switch, a Cisco compact switch. Sits on my desk. I can do VLANs if I need to. Right now, I've got one thing plugged into it, and it's doing more PoE than it is doing any enterprise features. It's not really doing anything, right? So, Yeah. So there's a couple
So
comments here.
I would say there's probably a third type of engineer as well, and the engineer where their home network is actually their production network, where the cables are pretty, everything's clean, everything has LED lights behind it. The network becomes the pride and joy of what they've done, and definitely not me.
So I'm pulling
Mine
up.
is the dirty cabling mess. Oh, I see here.
I'm pulling up Chris's comment here. It says my home network used to be my experimentation lab, but now he's more in my camp. Still with the enterprise-ish gear. And
That's right. I think Chris said he moved to all Unify or Ubiquity. I think everything 100%.
And Donald here says home network is clearly I don't want to mess with it variety. So he's sitting in my camp too. So I'm getting some love with those. But yeah, I got to the point, like I used to love tweaking around and messing around with it before, but now it's just kind of like I just want the thing to run. I just want it to always run. When it doesn't run, I'm irritated. Like I don't want to be messing with it. I don't want to be mucking with it. Although I will tell you, there are times when it becomes frustrating. Like right now, I need to, I want to do some things for work. I'm going to add some work connectivity options, virtual SD-WAN edge is what we're talking about. So I've got to do some plumbing for whatever, and I'm finding myself, man, I really wish I had A, B, C, or D, so I could just put up another SSID attached to that, and then pipe that downstairs to where it exits and do whatever. But I don't. So as much as I say I don't want to muck around with it, I still want the features because I know what's possible. Right? I know what's possible, and because of the fact that I don't have it, it's just kind of like, oh, okay. That's interesting.
So my approach has been almost a little bit opposite, and I would say that before me purchasing this Juniper switch, I always had very cheap, ugly, off the shelf from Staples gear. Like I had a switch down there, but it was a Netgear 8-port, passive, cooled, the little metal box, the GST 108. I had that. And for me, I just got tired of being without.
Right.
So I was just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to buy it. I'm just going to buy what I want. Like, why am I torturing myself? I'll just buy what I want and then I have it. And yeah. And now the drawback here is I went from a absolutely silent network closet because everything was passive, everything was DC, and powered with a little wall wart. Now I have an absolute screamer, dude. I mean, you can hear from rooms away. And so my next home project will be building a little soundproof box with the proper airflow and cable accessibility to run that switch. Or I got to ditch the switch, one or the other. I'm going to try and build a box first.
Oh, man. I'm looking at the comments that are here. something shoemaker's children. Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been a good one.
Donald brings up a good point. Isn't that just an output of just working from home? Like, yeah, absolutely. Like part of my shift was when I went home full time. Like I just didn't want my stuff to constantly be in a state of flux. So yeah, it's been interesting. So how about work? What are you doing at work?
I did cover that a little bit, but I joined a new team, and I'm trying to go through the motions of assimilating myself into that team. So I got to learn products, processes, people. It's new to me. I was always customer facing. I was a customer facing engineer. So I did everything from architecture to implementation, from design to install. And now I'm not customer facing and I'm totally internally facing. So I'm really focused on an internal group in our company. And it's interesting. It's new. Feet wet and trying to get comfortable. So we'll circle back around to that in another couple of weeks and see how it's going.
Okay. Sounds good. You were part of some event recently.
That's right. So just before here, I was blabbering on about Monday and Tuesday off TO to be part of an event, a cyber hunt training event put on by the guys over at Recon InfoSec. This is not a plug, but this is what I've been doing, and it was for their network defense range. So this was really, really cool. And it's, most people know me as I'm the networking guy, right? I went and earned my CCIE in routing and switching. But my entire career has always been a focus on security, and not the CCIE security style track. And so this opportunity came for me to be able to take this training, and I was like, oh hell yeah, because I had participated in a CTF with these guys before, and it was a really, really awesome training. They have an entire enterprise network. It's a live network, with all real machines, with a real threat actor. All of the sensors are live. Nothing is pre-canned in the environment, and so it gives it that very real feel. And what you are is you're a blue team operator. You're a defender. An attack has happened, and you have to find and put together the thread. To be able to put the story together of what happened, how many machines were affected, how did it happen, what is the risk factor, just sort of all that, by only examining the network forensics and system forensics that are available to you. Syslogs, NetFlow, firewall logs, PCAP, and a whole host of other things. They've really put together a really awesome training. And again, not a plug, but if that's your bag, then I would definitely go find them, because this is something that's kind of newish style way of doing things, I think, on getting really hands-on in the training environments. And it's super cool. So me going in there, right, I'm not a hacker, or at least you don't know that I am. But that's not my background. I'm not a red teamer, you know what I mean? And I don't do operations for blue teams. I don't spend my day in a SOC. I'm the networking guy. But coming into an event like that with my networking background was hugely advantageous to being able to put, these sort of artifacts together, these observables together, and make sense of them. Where I think some folks that come in from the more system side of things look at the network and they just don't understand what they're looking at. The same way that I look at Windows event logs and I'm like, I don't know what they mean. I don't know what this stuff means, but they can make sense of it. So it's very good to sort of build a team of people with, with multiple domains of training to be able to operate something like this. And I had a blast. I thought we did great as a team. I got put on a team with a few other folks, and it was really awesome. I absolutely love that part of it, because, that's where, in my mind, I'm not configuring OSPF and BGP, and I'm not doing protocol stuff. It's how much do you really understand the network? What is the network telling you when you can't touch it? When you can't log into the router or the firewall or any of the devices? What is the network telling you just by how the clients are operating? And that's super cool. And so I did that for Monday and Tuesday. That was 8 hours a day. Had an absolute blast. If anyone wants to find out more, you can DM me. I'm happy to talk about it. I love the network security focused stuff.
Oh, that's cool. So actually, I think we have a guest here. So I'm gonna bring him in. So we actually brought Donald in. I wanted to do a formal introduction. So Donald, this is Tony. Tony, this is
hey,
Donald.
Donnie. Hey.
I'll do the official wave. There
the official wave. So you've got to get it right. It can't be Don or Donnie. It's got to be Donald, and that's a historical thing.
Donald.
There were three Dons all working on the same team.
You actually know that story?
Right. I do. I've been around you for a little while now. I've got some of your stories.
I think I even might have that. That's Donnie Savage, right? Donald Sharp. That's you.
That's me.
See, I even know who you are. Who's the other one?
Don Slice.
Yep.
Oh, so Don Slice,
of course.
He's running. He was intimately involved with ERGP for many years. Was definitely very heavy into TAC for a few years, and he knows routing better than most anyone else I ever talked to. So he gets it better than me.
That's nice. Right. So Donald, what have you been working on?
Well,
fixing BGP, right? That's every time I ask you this question, that's what you're doing. You're fixing something in BGP and free range routing.
Maybe, yeah. Actually, so so there's two things. Well, there's the official work thing I've been working on is we're added the ability to know when you have a route actually in the ASIC and it's offloaded properly.
Okay.
So we have signal and backup to FRR that the route is actually in the not in the kernel, but in the actual ASIC itself.
Okay.
So from a Cumulus Linux, if people who aren't familiar with it, the FRR is the RIB, Linux kernel's the FIB, and the ASIC underneath is programmed by a different device. And so there's a small period of time where the kernel knows about it, which is the FIB from FRR's perspective, but the ASIC isn't forwarded it yet. And so we have completed the loop now. So FRR installs with the kernel gives it to the ASIC, and then the ASIC passes it back to the kernel, and FRR gets the result that it actually is. Where before we were just assuming fizz in the kernel what was done. So that's the one big piece lately. And the second thing I've been kind of working on is BGP. There's
I knew it. Had to be.
So the data structures are gotten too large and they need to be pared down, and it's a matter of there's a lot of basic assumptions about how data talks to itself inside of FRR, and when you change the layout of data structures, that breaks and you have to go fix it. But effectively, a full BGP feed, currently is 600 megabytes in BGP. I want to cut it down to under 500 and hopefully into the 400 range again. So
it seems like a non-trivial thing to do. Like it got to that size for a reason, right? Or is it are there just that many inefficiencies in the code that it could be improved?
It got to that size because when you add things like EVPN and you add things like MPLS and you add things like L2 VPNs, all the little bits of data that you need to keep track of, if you just throw them into one data structure without thought about future, it just grows. So.
Gotcha. So it's going back around and cleaning up the kitchen sink.
Yep.
Yeah, you got it. It makes sense. Well, that's cool. I just wanted to bring you on. First, we wanted to test if we could bring a guest on. This has worked wildly successfully, so I'm very happy with this test. The other thing is, it was in the Network Collective Slack today. I said, yeah, Tony and I are going to be running a test tonight. We're going to be live streaming. You should check it out if you don't have anything going on. And Donald goes, who's Tony? And I'm like, he's only been on the show for 8 months.
Tony who?
Yeah, Tony who. So I figured I would do the introduction here live. So you two, now you can officially know.
Now I know.
Yeah, I also now know that Donald doesn't ever watch or listen to Network Collective because otherwise.
I was going to say, because what he did was he totally showed his hand, right? He was like, oh, really? For 8 months?
Yeah. It's all good. You've been a little busy, and it's, I'm fighting the same thing. There's a lot of podcasts I listen to that I don't listen to right now because I'm not commuting. Like I'm just not going to the office. I'm not getting on planes and going places. It's part of the things driving a new format. I mean, just to be honest, right? Like we're going to keep up with the podcast because the podcast is good and it's valuable, and I think that it's worth doing. And eventually we'll come back to the point where that's going to be as valuable as it once was. But it's just not there right now because I think that a lot of people are just having a hard time listening to audio. And so I think, at least for that long. So I think that idea of kind of chunking up, let's get a topic and talk about it for a few minutes and get that down. And that's easier to consume as you're consuming lunch in front of your computer at home or whatever, like whatever it is that you're doing, it's easier to kind of pull that down. So anyway, Donald, thanks for coming on. Thanks for making the guest cameo appearance here on the first live stream, being brave with us as we were likely going to fall on our face, but seems to be going well. So
thanks for having me on.
It was good to see you. And we should have you on for a full one.
Before you go.
Here we go.
I was going to say, we definitely should. But before you go, actually, from what you said about the NIC signaling, the ASIC signaling back up, I was just wondering, how long does that take? Does that signaling loop take?
Depends.
I mean, because if one of the reasons, to implement something like that was the ASIC didn't know how to forward something, then I mean, if it was, microseconds, then how much packet loss could you be suffering?
Well, you're looking at it, I think, from the wrong way, right?
Okay.
There is delay for every single control plane to data plane for installing a route, right? And what that is, you probably don't get you don't get each individual vendor telling you, here's what our delay is, right? When we receive a BGP packet, here's how long it takes it to do it. And people run tests and stuff like that. It depends on the number of routes you've just received, how busy the box is going on. The reality is this is the feature to allow. Let me start over. I got. You send me, Tony, you send me a BGP route, right?
Mm-hmm.
I install it and then I send it to my peers, right?
Mm-hmm.
The time that the route is being installed is probably faster than the time for you to get that route and install the route into your fib and start forwarding to me. That's going to be longer because anything you go over the network, it's longer, right? So it doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
from that perspective. So if you're, it does matter if it's seconds or tens of seconds, but if it's, 30, 40, 50 milliseconds, who cares? But there are people who do, they set up a lab and they have a Ixia blasting packets out one thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have on the other end, they install the route and then they measure how long it takes. And that's part of their process for deciding whether they're going to buy you. So you as a vendor have to have that feature available.
No, it makes perfect sense. I'm coming from the side of, always working at the control plane, I guess probably the management plane, right? And configuring routes or receiving routes, and boom, I'm forwarding. There is no perceivable delay.
It's milliseconds, 50 milliseconds.
Yeah.
100 milliseconds. You're not going to notice that. It's hard to notice that.
But to those,
I was going to say, like, you're in the realm of noticeable, but it's not. You have to be paying attention. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, if at that time you receive the route, you also happen to have another process sends a SNP walk of your BGP MIB. Well, that's going to be slow it down, right? So what else is going on in the box at the same time? It matters. So.
All right.
Wow.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Donald, I'm glad you could jump in. That was both entertaining and insightful. We learned some facts about route installation in hardware today, which is actually not atypical for my conversations with you. I usually learn something about the interaction between hardware and software because that's what you work on all the time. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you later, Donald.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Donald. Yep.
All right. That was fun.
Jordan, that was super cool, man. I did not know you're going to have Donald on joining us like that. And that was really flawless. Really awesome job.
So now
I'm telling you did an awesome job setting this up.
So now we just need to put that out randomly, that link to come into the show, just see who shows up.
Oh,
just put it on
that's
Twitter
like a
and
crazy
be like,
game of roulette.
Yeah,
oh
who's jumping on the show today?
Wow. Okay.
Chris here. This is awesome.
That'll be
things
a
like
special
yield
episode.
Juniper MX104 will take multiple minutes to load the fib if you're lucky.
Wow. Okay.
That sounds like some sour grapes.
Okay. Yeah, I had never heard of that. It makes perfect sense what Donald was talking about. But from my perspective, you throw up a routing protocol, within a second of receiving some prefixes via the control plane, boom, you can forward. But then again, I'm not representing companies or businesses where those delays matter.
Yeah,
I assume, some of the people who are evaluating that sort of thing, it matters for them. And so they need to be able to know it and have that sort of loop. And that's really impressive.
Yeah. So, FRR is used in so many different places, but the places that are evaluating products at that level, they tend to be the ones where they sit on the boundaries, the edges of what everyone else deals with, right? Like, like if you're evaluating a product and, you're concerned between 20 and 50 milliseconds to get a route installed, knowing full well that it's going to take longer to get it out to the peer, just like Donald said. Like that's a, that's a very specific, like you're dealing in a very high performance environment if that kind of stuff matters. But it does. There are places where that does matter.
Jordan, I wanted to say that, we kind of talked about how I've been a little bit hands off the keyboard with networking lately, but I know you've been getting your hands dirty, actually getting into some code recently. You showed me a little demo the other day. I wonder if you could entertain us about that.
Yeah. So I, some background, like I work on, it's a pre-sales type function at Worldwide Technology. I work on what's called our global engineering team. And I've been getting more involved. Actually, I had a position shift recently where I've been getting more involved with cloud networking, and specifically like looking at how enterprises connect to the cloud and dealing with multi-cloud. And then also, some of these next generation, which is always funny to say because next generation becomes current generation, becomes last generation pretty quickly in this world. But next generation, WAN technologies, things like the newest features about on-ramp with SD-WAN, and still doing a lot with SD-WAN, just regular SD-WAN, but also starting to talk about things like SASE, my favorite acronym. Where's that sarcasm, Mark, when you need it, right? Like SASE and some of the newer security strategies as it relates to branch connectivity. But with cloud specifically, we've been spending a lot of time working with cloud overlay fabrics. And so just to throw a couple of products out there that kind of fit that mold, Aviatrix is one, and another one would be Alkira, and there's a couple more that'll be hitting the market here real soon. And so I've been spending time kind of working through both just getting to know those products, but also like really kind of getting up to speed on cloud networking, because I had a very cursory knowledge, and now it's a more central role to what I'm doing. And so I'm going to have to learn all the nuances and all the components there. But on top of that, I'm like learning it as I'm deploying these things. So I'm kind of getting trial by fire. And just to add more to it, we kind of want to, as a company, the way we approach our work is we want to be a company that eats their own dog food, right? Like if we're going to go out and tell the customer and talk to them about something like infrastructure as code, we got to know how to do it. We got a whole team that works on it, but it's not just that team that can consult it. Like it's got to be part of our DNA. And so we wanted to be able to build these labs completely via infrastructure as code. And so we're talking not just the VPCs and whatever, building the Aviatrix overlay on top of it, building things like direct connects in and out of colos, building the colo connectivity all the way down into the on-prem. And so like it's quite an extensive lab. And so I've been neck deep in Terraform for the past several weeks, starting as being a very, very amateur Terraform user. And I would say I have definitely very steeply gone up the curve to proficient in Terraform in the past few weeks as I've been, learning about some of the nuances about how it works and getting things deployed in cloud environments and building an environment that bridges multiple environments. And then also layering on top that the cloud connectivity fabric like Aviatrix, which has been a really interesting journey. I was kind of having that feeling like I hadn't learned something new in a while, and I was fretting a bit, like the idea of having to go learn something new, be intentional about it, and I don't know why. Like I mean, like I'm always learning. Like there's always like this constant drum of learning, but it's one thing to take that big step and say, yeah, sure, cloud connectivity, Terraform, infrastructure as code. I mean, I have Python wrap around it, and I've written Python for a while now, but like they're got to get back into it and, bang the rust off to make it happen. And so like there was a lot to this project. And I kind of said yes, I wanted to be involved before I thought about the implications of what I said. And I'm kind of glad I did, because it just kind of forced me into that. And like, okay, you're gonna have to go do all this stuff now. And so it's resulted in a job change, because I kind of started working in it before the job change happened. And they're like, oh, hey, like you're interested in this, why don't you come over here and help us out? And then on top of that, it's resulted in like really getting to skill up on some new technologies and some new tools. And so a couple more weeks and I'll, might be able to call myself a programmer. I don't know. That's probably a bit extreme, because I still feel like a script, like I write scripts. I don't write code. Mm-hmm. I'm looking here. The proper pronunciation of sassy involves a Z snap of your fingers. I refuse. I absolutely refuse. I see one of my coworkers is watching too. Hey, Brandon. Brandon Hunter's on. He's watching. He's appreciating the mention of WWT. But yeah. So yeah, it's been a fun project, and it's definitely expanded, my skill set, which is good. But it's just one of those nice things to not become rigid, right? And to take on new things and just become proficient in this new stuff. And it's exciting too. I mean, I see the reason why Aviatrix and Alkira and these products catch my eye is because they're kind of, they're like SD-WAN for clouds. It's the same idea. Controllers, overlays, connectivity, but I really see a lot of value in abstracting some of the concepts because those nuances are hard. Like the nuances between clouds, like, route limitations and limitations for particular things. Like I've run into so many of these things as I've kind of gone through building a proof of concept lab where I'm trying to push the boundaries of all of these things. And went like, why does that thing exist? Like, why is that a limitation, right? Like, I'm sure there's a good reason, but it is. And then you step over to the next cloud provider and that limitation doesn't exist there, but this other like completely seemingly random limitation does. And so it's just, it's been an experience, right? And so that's what I've been doing, but we also kind of have like a timeline associated with it. So I don't have an extended timeline because I'm learning. I've got to get this thing done. And so it's been a bit heads down. Like it's like I said, I think we were talking earlier, like, roll out of bed and walk over to my computer and work until dinner time, go down, hang out with the kids. And then once the kids go to bed, like laptop on my lap in the evening and really going after it. I haven't had that kind of work schedule in a while. Not factoring in Network Collective. That's how I feel with Network Collective, because I work all day, have dinner, and then I work on Network Collective at night. But this is before Network Collective, so unfortunately some of the Network Collective stuff is taking longer to handle just because only so many hours in a day. Yeah, I would kill to have a few more. I'm sure most people would agree with that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I definitely remember, those times of studying, whether it was for CCNA, CCNP, or CCIE. CCIE goes far and beyond, but the work all day, teach yourself something new in the evening, have dinner, spend time with the family, and then laptop, on your lap in the bed, trying to cram in just a little bit more, trying to get just an inch a little bit further in your project or whatever you're learning. And, I'm glad I can just sit back. I can just sit back and learn whatever I want to learn right now.
Well, see, I think that was part of it too.
I'm still riding the wave of completing the CCIE. Where like I don't need to learn anything right now. Soon I will. But you know what? I've said this before on my own YouTube channel and everything. I got to give my family a break. I put them through hell for like 2 years. I got to give them like a solid year of just me doing dinner every night with them, before I start slipping in, hey, maybe I'm going to go for another certification.
Another certification. Yeah. I got some Aviatrix certs and all of this just because I was like learning it anyway. So I sat down for a couple tests and took them. Nothing dramatic, but it was it was like, wow, I haven't really pursued, like, I mean, I've had stuff I've had to go after for the purposes of work, like, either vendor specialist type certifications or whatever, and I've gone and I've done those things, but I haven't gone after one for myself. Like, that's not completely true. I did get my CCDP. I don't even know, with all of the shakeup of certifications, if that's still a thing. I think it is. I don't think that one got touched. But I got my CCDP because it was like one test. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I don't have to, like, I can go study this one thing. And I did it as part of my continuing ed to renew my CCIE. So that's cool. But I hadn't really gone after anything for myself since my CCIE. And it's been a while now, right? And so what are we at? 6 years, right? And so, like, I just hadn't, like, really, like... I mean, you've been through the process, and I'm sure other people have as well. I don't understand the person that's gone after multiple CCIEs. I respect them, and it's amazing what they've done. And it definitely should be recognized as an accomplishment. But after one, I was done. Like I just had no interest in getting another one. And, you know, I was burned out afterwards, which I think everybody's burned out at the end of the CCIE process. And I haven't gone back to that, like, oh my, it might be good to have another one. You know, like that thought just has never crossed my mind. Like, to me, although I think that part of it is, I mean, people give, and I think it's a valid criticism of the CCIE, is that, you know, like, you can learn everything you learn in the CCIE outside of it. Like, you don't have to go after the CCIE to learn and become an expert. And that's very, very true. But to me, part of it was the dedication to completing this very specific thing, right? Like there's a hallmark there in actually getting it done. I learned a lot about how to study and how to learn and how to quickly absorb new things in going through the CCIE, which was a great skill to learn through going through the process. And then once you've climbed Everest, you don't get like attaboys for climbing Everest again. Do you know what I'm saying? like and once you do it once, it's like, okay, well, now we know that you're capable of it. Congratulations. Everyone's excited. If you go and do it again, it's so what? So like, to me, the effort to reward seems pretty low. But I understand there's people who just like to push themselves. There's people who like to do whatever. I mean, there's people who have 8 of them, and like, that's amazing to me. And I have absolutely zero interest in that. None at all. Like, just no interest whatsoever. And so it was, this was the first time I'd actually kind of gone and done some, you know, certifications. Now, it was a byproduct of other work. I had to learn it, but if I'm sitting there learning, I might as well go take the test, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, that's what I've been up to.
That's very cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spend this time here because I could go off on a long tangent about my CCIE, but I was just recently thinking about the people who go after the multiple CCIEs, like you mentioned, and I don't know if this is actually true. So someone please correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm making a false assumption here, but I feel like the people who go after the multiple CCIEs, and I don't mean 2, but they do the 3, the 4, the 5. I don't think they have a journey. And I don't know, I'm making an assumption. I don't think they had a journey like I had, where 1 was a huge freaking struggle. Like, I had to teach myself, like, just like you said, I had to teach myself how to learn. I had to teach myself how to study. I had to teach myself the fundamentals of learning, not just the content, but of learning, of how to you know, how to take notes, how to the labs, how to do everything. And I just think that the people who might have 4 or 5 CCIEs or more, maybe they just have that part figured out, you know, where they can ingest the material very efficiently and perform it, right? There's no trick. You still have to go take the exam. You still have to perform. So maybe they just have a much more hardwired pathways in their mind to being able to ingest that data and make sense of it more quickly than the rest of us. Because there's no way, you know, I think Neil, right, he has like 8 or 9 CCIEs or something. There's no way he did all 9 of them like I did my 1.
I do think that like when you study and you study a certain level, I think it changes your baseline. So I think that if you were, even you, where you say you struggled through it and you had to put a lot of effort, and I'm in the same camp, right? Like, even if you had to go through that, if you were to go do it again, I don't think it would be the same level of effort. I think that there's a lot that's involved that is getting yourself up to that expert level. If you aren't already there, that is learning the process, like learning how to learn, learning how to be diligent, learning how to work a blueprint, learning how to do those things and knowing what that looks like and what that feels like and all of that. And I feel like you don't have that hurdle the second time around. You can look at the blueprint, go after the stuff, go take the test. It's still a lot of learning. I'm not trying to downplay the level of effort. One of the things that was recommended to me is that if I was going to go after 2, like to go after service provider right after route switch, because the overlap was pretty big, right? Like you could get to 2 pretty easily. And again, I just didn't have that interest because the blueprints overlapped quite a bit, and then it was okay. Then you have to learn overlay technologies. It's just a continuation of what you've been doing. If it took you a year and a half, or 2 years, or 3 years, or whatever for your first CCIE, the next one would take a third or half as long, because you've already done all that work and you're doing that at an expert level, and you don't have the learning curve, and you don't have the the other things that are involved with the process. But at the same time, you got to be wanting to do it, and it still requires a tremendous amount of dedication and time. And I'm just like, nah, I'm much more interested in learning other things. Like, this is why this cloud stuff is so interesting to me, because it's other things. It's still networking, but it's tangential, right? I'm learning Terraform, and that's, a tool that's not something I'm going to come across a lot in enterprise networking, like doing the on-premises enterprise networking, but being able to learn it. And now I have a new skill around cloud. That's interesting to me. Which is why I was so happy for the continuing ed part of the CCIE for renewal, is rather than going back to the well, taking the same test over and over again to renew your CCIE, I can go do something else. Now, you could go take another test in another discipline, but it had to be at the expert level. So, like, you had to get up to a competent prerequisite level in wireless, or in, name your other discipline to go renew. This obviously talking about the previous way of renewal. This was, it was nice to get the continuing ed, because then it was kind of like, hey, like, I can now go study something and get credit for studying for it, and not necessarily be a certification. Or, like I did last time, go after a professional level certification, and now you even get credit for taking those tests, which the program keeps getting better and better. So excuse me.
Soon I'll need to renew. And
I completely
actually,
lucked out.
it's not that it's soon, but the fact that I know when there's like a mental deadline there, right? Like, I have a mark on the calendar, a big red circle in my mind of when I need to do it by. And so continuing education, I've looked at some of those courses, and some of those courses look really good. I'm fortunate that I work for a company that uses it, and so we get a certain amount of money to put towards something like that. So, but they're expensive. I mean, it's not for free. I think the cheaper way might be to go retest. If you could do it,
there's
would be to retest.
There's no doubt, but to me, it's ROI. So there's so many components that go into that. But first is, what's that CCIE worth, right? Like, it has changed the trajectory of my career. I know a lot of people will say it doesn't really do anything. I disagree with that immensely. The doors that it opened for me was pretty significant. It's not my only hallmark, right? It came along with other hard work, proven dedication to doing what I was doing. There's a lot of other things. It's not just the CCIE, but that was a component that was in the mix. And without it, I know that there are doors that would not have been open otherwise. And so, having that and having that value, what's that worth? Well, to me, financially, over the past 6 years, a lot. Like, I might have been able to make some of those moves, but I certainly wouldn't be where I'm at today without it. And so, like, what was that worth? Well, I mean, for a renewal, if I have to spend out of my own pocket and spend a couple grand to renew it, no brainer. Now, there are cheaper ways, and if you're doing it that way, you might want to weigh those things, but then you have to start weighing your time. How much is your time worth? If I can go just, take this class, go through it, learn to the level that I want to learn, take the exams in the class that proves that I've actually done the work, and then I get credit for that, and I can do 2 or 3 of those, versus I have to go take this test, and if the test doesn't work out in my favor, or the test is not a good version of the test, which we've all experienced before, then I have to go take the test 2 or 3 times, and I'm doing this whole back and forth and whatever. It might be really easy if you can just step into a test, but there's not a whole lot of people I know that are multidisciplined at a super high level. And so, like, being able to do that is a bit challenging. I'm really interested in some of the DevNet stuff now. So, like, I have some interest in getting some of those certifications just to have them, because I think those certifications are good, they're new, they're fresh. It's not just going out and getting your route switch, right? So I might do study this time around and take, like, the first level test, and then maybe next time. Well, actually, I only have one more. I completely lucked out with COVID hitting the way that it did. Now, COVID hasn't been good for so many things, but it was good for my CCIE renewal, because when they changed the whole plan and they went to 3-year renewals, I was going to have a renewal that was due just before I could hit emeritus. And so I was looking at it. It was like, okay, I still have 2 renewals. I missed it by like a month. And so with the extra 6 months they added on, because of COVID and the testing centers being closed and all of that stuff, it put me over the level. So now I only have to renew once. I can renew once and very cleanly get over the 10-year and get to an emeritus. And so then the question is, 3.5 years from now, when I get there, is my employer going to care? Well, where I'm at now, probably not. WWT has so many CCIEs. Like, I don't think mine matters at all. But if I'm there and I can go emeritus, I'm all in. I'll pay a little bit of money and and not have to keep renewing every year, because I've already done the Climbing Everest. I don't need to prove it again. Like I've done it. Like, I don't need to hold on to it. But there's so much effort that's gone into it that I don't want to let it lapse. Like, it's completely sunk cost fallacy. I get it. I completely do. But if the pursuit of maintaining it doesn't cost that much, I'm in, because it's been so valuable to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's an interesting comment here. I'm going to bring it up because I think it might be worth talking about. Let me. It says, seen a lot of people getting DevNet, but not a lot of people actually ever using those skills day to day. What do you think about that?
That is a good one. Wow. That's like accusational.
Username is Kinzel. I don't know who that is, but yeah.
I don't know who it is either. Yeah. Kinzel, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
That is a good question. DevNet is super hot right now. I mean, especially in our networking community here on Twitter, everyone is chasing DevNet and being very successful at it. And it's a huge, I think, door opener for people and exposing them to coding in multiple fashions, right? Python or Ansible. I mean, I guess it's coding or scripting or however you want to identify it. They wouldn't have otherwise been exposed to it. And so I think it's really opened a lot up to a lot of people to do that. But I wish, okay, so when I started my CCIE, I saw the weather changing on Twitter and with networking as a whole. About half of the community started to go off to the left and started doing Python and Ansible and scripting. This was pre-DevNet, but DevNet was coming shortly after. And the other half of the networking community veered to the right and stayed steadfast on the existing certifications. And so I went to the right and I pursued my CCIE. But a lot of people that I was watching here on Twitter are doing this with Python and this with Ansible and this with Nornir and this with, and then all this stuff. I don't even know all of the software and packages and instrumentation that's out there. I wish now, looking back, like, I should have taken some time to learn all that. Because even since earning my CCIE, I've been in environments where I'm like, I bet we could probably just do this in Python. Instead, I got an Excel spreadsheet, like I'm doing it in the olden days. And so there are many times in an operations network, I think, where scripting and automation can be utilized day to day. Whether or not those shops care to embrace it, I don't know. But when I just finished my most recent Palo Alto project, Jordan, I've talked about it on the show many times. There was a lot of things I wish I could have done to be able to reach into all the routers and give me their southbound IP address so that I know what it is. Give me the VLANs that are tagged over here on all of these switches throughout the entire environment. Simple operational things that I would have liked to have had, and couldn't because I didn't bother to learn it, and other people couldn't make it happen for me. So, I mean, I don't know to what level. It says not a lot of people actually ever using those skills day to day. I think a lot of people are. I don't know to what level, though. I mean, I don't see a lot of people scripting the deployment of entire environments every day, right? You don't need to do that every day, except for Jordan Martin. He does it multiple times a day through Terraform. but simple operational things like, hey, show me the domain name configured on all the routers. We just want to do a compliance check. Show me that you're running SSH version 2 and not 1.99 on all the routers. Simple things like that. I should be doing every day. I wish I had a better answer, but I see the need for it, and I don't have the chops yet. I'm just not there yet.
So I think
I'm also not in operations, so I don't need to do that stuff.
That's a big thing. So obviously working at Avar, I get my eyes into a lot of different organizations. And so I wouldn't disagree with this comment. I don't see lots of organizations that are out there that are hammering away with automation in some particularly meaningful way. That being said, I think that we're on the precipice of a real change, and I think that we're getting ready for it. I think there are ways that we can use the tools that we have today, but I think that a lot of people say the tools are less than ideal, and the tools are less than ideal because the equipment is less than ideal, right? The stuff we're getting from our manufacturers was not made with the idea of automation first, except for if you talk to Juniper. Juniper's been doing this, automation interfaces, as a foundational component of what they're doing for a very long time. But the rest, and we can pick on Cisco here because Cisco is the 800-pound gorilla in the enterprise market, at least. They have not made gear that's been open or have given you good tools to script against it. So we're still doing either screen scraping or abstracted screen scraping. And we're just starting to get into APIs, and we're just starting to get into that. And then we have the format wars about whether or not we should be doing things in JSON or XML or, whatever else, and I think that, there's some growth that needs to happen in the market for it to really become something that gets used a ton. But where you see where automation was thought of as part of the component. And so this has been my experience these past, a month and a half or so as I've been working on this project in the cloud. I wouldn't do it any other way. I'm not in there in fact, today I had to go create a bunch of VPCs and a bunch of VNets for a demo of an environment. And I was like, okay, I went and I pulled out some old Terraform that I'd written for something else, and I used it to deploy those because I wasn't going to go deploy, 16 different, network or VPCs, VNets, and then all the ancillary stuff that goes with it. I already had a script to do that. I just kind of modified it quick, took me a couple of minutes, and then I had a rather robust environment rather quickly. And it's okay, so here was that tool, but here is this environment that's built for that tool. The environment was built with the idea of that in mind. And so we have really robust tools like Terraform to work in that environment. And as we see the equipment come along, I think people will use it more. I think that the networking industry is smart. They see that this change is coming. They see that with the scale that things are going at and the rate of change, we have to. So I don't think it's misguided to be spending a lot of time in the automation space. But now with Cisco really, going out and saying, we're all in on this and we're going to be making it possible for you to do it. And as they mature in that strategy, beyond just DevNet, but actually in their equipment that they're delivering, we're going to see it be used a lot more. A couple comments.
I really think Cisco, I was going to say, Cisco really had an absolute brilliant move to get behind automation and coding, and to create the whole DevNet portion of their company. It's just an absolutely really brilliant business idea. Think about all the people now that are getting DevNet certs and who are learned their Python fundamentals from Cisco, right? So now, in a couple of years, when they're continuing to advance those skills, they're always going to remember oh, I learned that from Cisco, and they're always going to have that tie. Just a lot of people who came up when I was coming up, they learned their CCNA stuff from Keith Barker and Jeremy Chara. Those were the guys who you learned your CCNA stuff from because they were out there doing it. And I think Cisco, what an awesome decision to get behind that and force that through the community. And it's just taken off. It's awesome.
So interesting comment here.
Let's see what we have here. Layer 4 down. Yeah.
So it says
right. Terraform is day one ops.
Yeah, day one ops versus
Python, PowerShell, and other scripting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so that's day 2. So I think there definitely is a distinction here, right? There's the deployment versus the day-to-day management. And I think that's a really just important distinction as well. I think that for what you were mentioning, the idea of being able to go and extract that information, like if you were running the entire environment as infrastructure as code, you could go back to your Terraform state and pull that down. Like you don't even have to go out to the devices because you know that the two are the same. Right. So like I can go in and I can just pull that out of the state information. I could build that in, that I'd have that available to me, and I could use a script to hit that and pull that out. But if you didn't build it with that, what do you use? Well, you've got to use another tool because Terraform's about the building process. It's day 1, right? So then you're going to use Python. You're going to go out and pull that out. Like hopefully you have an API that you can hit. But if not, you're going to go out and screen scrape. You're going to use you know, all of the things that are out there, NetMiko or, you know, Nornir or whatever, the stuff that's out there that abstracts that away for you. So you go out and get that information back in some way that's usable. There's a lot of great tools there to doing that. So yeah, I think that I think that the point that Kinzel made here is that he's right. It's not like it's pervasive, but I think that we're just taking those steps. Like we're definitely getting there. Another good one here from Kinzel as well. He says it's kind of Jekyll and Hyde with Cisco. Like they're talking automation on the DevNet side, and then it's proprietary DC fabrics and SD-WAN in the other hand. I don't think it's completely wrong. I also don't think it's completely right here. When we talk about the proprietary DC fabrics here, we're talking about ACI, right? And when we're talking about ACI was built with an automation first mentality. I'm not saying their automation interface is easy to consume, but it's easier to run and manage ACI programmatically than it is through their GUI. You can infer what you want from that statement. But that is 100% true. And so, you know, so with that, I wouldn't say that they're not about automation. They just didn't push it, right? Because people were used to a GUI and they didn't want to, like, you know, disrupt the apple cart. You know, they didn't want to turn things over and come in and say, okay, well, you've got to abandon the GUI. But they gave you the automation piece that's there. SD-WAN does have automation components that sit behind it in vManage. You can automate that system. Like it's not everything, but there's a decent amount of automation that can happen. And so like it's not an either or other thing. So I think it's a yes to some degree. I agree. But to another degree, I don't. So I think that it's not really Jekyll and Hyde, but I think that Cisco has the challenge of legacy, right? They've got a bunch of customers that are used to doing things a particular way. And if they move too fast, then a bunch of customers throwing their hands up in the air and saying, I don't want to do that. That's too much. And they're going to be looking for somebody else who's going to not make them move so fast. Enterprise change is slow. It's molasses. It doesn't happen overnight. And so in that, I think, I think that they're trying to advance the industry and at the same time not trying to abandon their customers because, you know, like they like the paycheck, right? Like they'd much rather make money than be right. And I don't blame them because that's their job. But at the same time, we as an industry need to move forward. We have to push this forward because managing it by hand and all the stuff that's been going on, you know, historically is not going to keep up in the long run. Yep. So, I mean, that was a really interesting tangent that I wasn't anticipating. This is really good. We're getting lots of comments and interaction here. I love it. Let me pull this down. Another comment here for you, Tony, specifically. We'll throw it up here. Just your best position. Fundamentals down. You have the CCIE. Now DevNet coding is just cream. And I really think that's it. I think it's going to be that coding is going to become a fundamental skill. It's not today. But if you have it, you can use it. I mean, I was frustrated. Like, so in my last job, like none of our customers really had any automation. So like this idea of a platform using Ansible, like, and doing infrastructure as code was foreign to my customers. But I could use Python and NetMiko, and I could go do large deployments much faster, right? So if I'm in a fixed fee engagement and I just went out and our baseline's based off of people who were doing it by hand, like doing whatever, I can make my company a lot of money. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do in the long run, but the idea is...
That's pretty sweet.
Right, like you go out there and you say, okay, like not only can we do this, but I can show the value by doing this. And when I say this, I mean these were janky scripts, man. Some of them are out there on my GitHub. You can go see them. But the idea is like mapping switch ports to configurations to build new configurations for new switches that had, different formatting for names, or we did different things like before where they had 6 or 7 switches that were daisy chained together, which was bad. We stacked, right? And so now it's a stack. And so the whole nomenclature changes. So mapping those things up and getting the configs right so that we didn't end up with having to go look at every port individually was a huge advantage. But I didn't have any time to play with Ansible because I wasn't building something that was meant to stick around. Do you know what I'm saying? I wasn't building the platform. I was just trying to do my job, and scripting showed up in ways that allowed me to do that in a better way.
So I found something that was actually, I don't know if anyone else, actually, let me put this out there. If anyone else has a similar experience, let me know. I was working inside an organization. Again, this was with my Palo Alto project, and I needed to sometimes get a lot of things from, over 100 different locations. And the only way I could do that was I needed to ask someone with access, hey, can you go pull this information down, put it in this spreadsheet for me, and give it to me? And that would give me a position for my Palo Alto deployments. And I started looking at it. I'm like, wait a second, we just need Python in here. I don't even know what I'm doing, but we need Python in here. I thought we could actually make this happen, and we could start with this organization, this operations team, to make this happen. And actually what I found was they don't have Python available to them. It's not on their workstations. It's not on the engineering team's workstations. The only people who have Python are the systems guys because they use it for a couple of scripts. And so if the network engineering team needs it, then the systems team has to spin up a VM that has Python on it that we could use. Well, wait a second. The VM that you're going to spin up isn't in the network engineer subnet, so it doesn't have access to all the devices. So it just became this sort of problem. Same thing with sort of like Ansible. Is there any tools that we can use? Because in this environment, every piece of software that's on a desktop needs to be approved and pushed there by the sysadmins, right? You're not downloading things and installing them. Only sysadmins have administrator rights. You're a user, you're a domain user with minimal rights at best. And it became really challenging to even open the door to automation, open the door to Python, open the door to Ansible. The door was closed on them. So they were the team who was, oh, you need that information from 100 routers? I'll get right on it. Come back tomorrow. And they'll just, go through and do it by hand. Because the climbing the hill of getting Python installed on your machine and approval and who's going to run it and who's going to maintain it, and you want to give your script access to what? Our infrastructure? It was that whole fear game. It's an uphill battle for some places. So I'd love to see if there's any comments out there that have a similar story, or maybe your organization just says Python, no problem, install whatever you want.
This is a response to
that's
that.
why I learned PowerShell. Yep. So actually, it's so funny. So I had a problem during my Palo Alto deployment, and I went to the vendor and I said, "Hey, I need a clean way to be able to do this with these Palo Alto boxes." And he was like, "Oh, I'll just code that up in Python for you." And I'm like, pump the brakes. All right, there's no Python. There never will be any Python. And he was like, well, what can you run? And I was like, oh, well, I have PowerShell. All right. So to Brandon's comment, so my rep from Palo Alto coded me up something in PowerShell, but he used PowerShell Core 6 or Core 7. And on my machine was PowerShell Core, 4 or 5, and compatible. And I'm not a PowerShell anything, so I can't fix the problem. And he can't touch my laptop. So it was one of those things where we tried to use PowerShell to get around this problem of not able to leverage Ansible or Python to start this team in their automation journey, to make things easier for them, more repeatable. And we can't even do that. And it was just so hard. So we ended up, doing a lot manually.
So right here, he has
I never run anything from my workstation.
Yeah, it's a good comment. And it's, always building essentially a jump box. So I do this for my own development, right? So like all this development that I'm doing, I run, Mac as my laptop, but I have a Linux VM, is where I do all of my development, because I've learned that trying to manage Python versions and trying to manage Terraform versions and all of that on my machine gets messy, because I have this project here that needs this and this project here, that needs something else. And so having a dedicated development machine, but in this case, like this might speak to your specific use case, rather than going out and installing it on everywhere, put remote desktop on this box, give your engineering team access to it, and put the right tools on there to get the job done. And then that also simplifies the security component as well. You start using certificates.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that was one of the approaches that, I told you they wanted to deploy a VM, and the only problem there was it wasn't in the engineering subnet, so it had access to nothing, and plumbing that over there to where the VM was hosted was just, there are some things. Look, this is something I always tell. I end up telling almost all of my customers. Yes, I can technically do what you're asking. How much time do we have? You know what I mean? Yeah. So can I actually plumb the engine and get that VM on the engineering subnet? Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, we can give it an IP. Yeah, we can do reverse lookups. We can treat it like a regular machine, a nice jump box that has access to everything. But by the time I do that, I'm going to have the data that I need if I just sit here all day and fill in this spreadsheet. And if I only got to do it the once, then I'm out. So it's just one of those things where you have a problem to solve. You make the call and you go with it, and at the end of the day, you have to be successful. I mean, I hate to be so sort of vague and blunt at the same time, but that's how I approach a lot of things. At the end of the day, a decision has to be made, and you have to be successful.
I love it. I'm watching the comments here, and Laz is trying to spark the debate. He's trying to light a fire. He's trying to light the fire. I love it, because this is a fun one, right? So. You get in there and use VI, Vim, or even better, a remote IDE like VS Code or Sublime. I know so many people that are going to take exception with that. So Laz, there you go. I put it out publicly so everyone can see that you said it. If you want, go to him. I didn't say it. Mm-hmm. Although I will say I do all of my development in IDE, and I don't do it in VI or Vim. I can. Whatever. I'm not a purist like this. It's just one of those things that I don't understand. I feel like it's gatekeeping. Here's another interesting topic. We're gonna go all night, Tony. Like, we keep coming up with great things to talk about. But I feel like sometimes we have these gatekeeping things in technology, and networking is not unique in this. I think it's across all disciplines, but it's like, real men do it this way. And here's my take. Real engineers get the job done. End of story. Use the tools that get the job done. Like, if you're awesome with VI or Vim and that's what you want to do, more power to you. I don't have any problem with you using the tool that you're comfortable with. But IDEs are good too, right? They're great tools. They offer a lot. And there are pros and cons to both. I get that. Just like anything else, every decision you make is a trade-off. But like, why do we have to go out there and like say, oh, you're new? You should definitely learn the hardest tool possible. You should definitely do the thing where they've made whole websites teaching you how to use it, because it's that hard to learn it, and it's archaic and abstract and not common. Now, once you learn the 4,000 shortcuts you need to know, you can be super efficient in it. Absolutely. 100% true. Or you could go use this IDE, which gives you nice color coding, which tells you exactly what's going on, gives you hints to when things are wrong, like all of these things. And wait, like somehow
Jordan, was that thing you were talking about? Was that thing you were just talking about? Was that VI?
VI, Vim, yes.
The thing about the all the 4,000 shortcuts
the joke,
to do something.
The joke that, like, you go in and everyone gets stuck leaving because no one knows how to exit it. I've been in there for 27 years. I just have never left because it's because to get out of it, I have to type this specific code. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm a CLI guy. I'm used to going in and doing those things. I've learned how to do it. And yes, it is a good tool. I use it all the time. I'm not even gonna go down that road, but like, I use it all the time. It's great. And then when it's there, and it's something that you as an engineer should learn at least the basics of, because there are going to be times when you don't have the ID available to you. So if you want to be a good engineer, getting the job done means learning a bit about the archaic tool that's only available to you. But if you have an ID available to you, why not use it? Like, why not use all the stuff that comes with it? So anyway, I won't continue down and belabor the point, and I think I just took heat off of Laz because I definitely became the voice of that one. But it's something that bothers me. Like, pick the tool that you want, but there's no don't gatekeep for the rest of the community and say that like you've got to do this because it's the only way to do it right. That's garbage. It's just nonsense.
Yeah.
So if there's a clip for this one,
Yeah,
that's
no,
it.
you're
That's my
right.
that's my rant. I'm gonna go
You're
stand on my soapbox.
So one of the things my coworkers like to do is on these VI, Vim, Nano, Pico arguments. We do it just for fun, just to get our blood pressure up. And I first of all, I'm a lover of Nano. Okay, and the reason is Nano is a
that was
text
the road.
editor.
That was the road I was not going to go down.
Wait, hang on a second. Let me tell you. Make this the clip. Nano is a text editor, and when I want to edit text, I use a text editor. VI is like a whole freaking operating system disguised as a text editor.
Oh,
Okay,
that's great.
I don't need to learn a new operating system to write a couple of ASCII characters in a text file. All right, just give me Nano. Okay, but here's the joke that my coworkers like to do. They go through the Linux systems, they uninstall Nano, and they create Alien Nano, and it opens VI. And I freaking hate them.
Well, first, that is incredibly mean, because if you're not paying attention, like Control X, it's not doing. Oh, right. I love it. That's
Yeah.
so first, Laz's comment is down here. I have to come back to it. I loved it, so I'm going to put it up on the screen here. He's given the subscription to Exit. so there you go. And there's a comment here from Ray that says no love for Emacs in the chat.
No,
just not ever been my thing. I don't
love.
have a thing against it. It's just never been my thing. I don't know. I'm going to throw this up here too. Sick bastards. I don't know if that's at us. Or if that's in some of the other
or maybe
comments
that's
in
to
the
my
chat.
coworkers. Maybe,
No.
maybe that's
oh,
to my
maybe that's it.
coworkers.
Maybe that's it. So Brandon, I want to know who that was pointed at, unless it was to us, in which case don't say anything.
All right. Yeah.
Oh, anyway. Oh, that was fun.
But yeah, I have that argument all the time, and but you know what? You're absolutely right, Jordan. Use whatever tool is available to get the job done. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what being a successful engineer is about. I like to have these arguments just for fun. Just get the job done. I really don't care what you use. I don't care, if you do know how to exit VI, then good for you. Tell me. But yeah, I mean, Notepad++ is
another great tool.
I still write code in Notepad++. I mean, it's no problem.
I just put it up here.
At Tony's
Brandon did
coworkers,
answer.
yeah.
It was definitely to your
Oh my
coworkers.
God.
Thank you, Brandon, making me feel a little bit better.
I would like to call out Mark, who I work with, Mark S. You know who you are. You'll see this.
You're going to send him a link? We'll post it. We'll send him a link to this conversation. Sorry, Mark S. You've just been called out. Oh, man.
Yeah. Oh, but another thing is that I wanted to talk about was network sharing. And I don't mean network shares like file shares, but I want to talk about, like, we often have conversations amongst each other about the networks that we build, the networks that we operate. We have discussions. I had a discussion with a friend the other day, not now, a couple of days ago, but they were talking about a specific network, and he was like, I want to be able to tell you, but I can't. I can't tell you these things. And I mean, we're not talking about matters of national security. We're talking about enterprise networking. We're talking about data center networking, and it's just a pet peeve of mine. But people keep these networks so close hold, these sort of network designs, if you will, or how they operate things, or specific instrumentation of devices, so close hold. I really think it works against what we're trying to do as a community, which is we're trying to better everybody. by sharing ideas. I said this before. We build networks so that humans can resources. It's the sharing of information. That's why we continue to increase bandwidth and continue to increase speed. The amount of information grows and grows and grows, and we want to be able to share that. Some of the earliest implementations of DARPA and the internet was about sharing information among universities. But yet, as network engineers and network operators, when we're talking with each other, we have to sort of mask everything that we're doing. We have to sort of hide everything about the networks. So when you move from job to job, or you move from network to network, you get to see a couple of different designs, a couple of different ways of doing things, and you pick up some tricks along the way. And ultimately you learn things and you go like, wow, I wish I knew this when I was working at that network. It would have made this work better. And these are tips that we could have all shared in the community as we have these discussions openly, but instead we sort of have to mask them. And I really hate that, that we have to be so secretive about our networks. Now, I think I get the position here, right? Networks to be about information sharing. Now they're about competitive advantage, right? They're about financial advantage. How can your network help your company have some sort of financial gain or competitive advantage over a competitor? So that's the network, or at least, we'd like to sell it that it's the net. And so all of those details need to be close hold. But, what if we knew everything that was going on, inside of, some of the big players in the game, the big cloud environments? What if us as enterprise engineers had that information available to us when we're solving problems in our own networks? Wouldn't we like to know what some of the best and most efficient examples and use cases are? We can't even share that information outside of our organizations. Sometimes we can't talk about these things, at all. And again, I'm not talking about matters of national security, military, and government networks. There's a reason those have to be kept secret. I get it. But we're talking about as we move from enterprise to enterprise or business to business, there's a lot here that's the same. Why are we pretending that there's some secret sauce in there? So you use this vendor and you use this vendor. It's been a pet peeve of mine. I just don't understand it. I mean, Jordan, what do you got to say?
So first off, I want to call out Ray's comment here. It says once in a while it's a security concern. Most of the time it's an insecurity concern. I couldn't agree with that more.
Oh my gosh, that's so brilliantly said. No, truly.
Yeah, it really is. So so having the experience of being in a lot of networks, let me tell you something. If you think you have a snowflake network and you work in an enterprise, you don't. Everyone uses the same technologies. They use the same prescriptions. And guess what? You're all using RFC 1918 addresses. If I took your diagram and I took your name off of it and I pulled into the next customer, it would most likely be like 80% relevant to what they're doing, right? Like it's the same stuff over and over and over again. And so I get that. I think that there's this idea, that this historical security model of the crunchy exterior and the soft interior, right? And we don't want people to know what the soft interior is because it's soft, right? So as a protection mechanism, we're not going to share what happens inside of our network because our only security tools were at the edge. And once somebody was in, if they had a map, it was easy picking. Now, I think that model is changing, right? I think we see more, desktop protections. I think we see more segmentation within networks. I think we're seeing more intelligence around, or more visibility around what's happening in the network. And those are all good things that is making that core also crunchy and hard. We don't have just a hard exterior. The whole network is becoming hardened. It's not perfect, and security is always a cat and mouse game. So I don't want to make it sound like, we've answered or solved the problem. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is knowing an IP address gives you a lot less than what it used to. Even just something as simple like, hey, Windows firewalls, when you install Windows, unless you do something about them, firewall's already turned on, right? So like these features, we've learned what good defaults look like and have gotten better about like leaving things open and not running services unnecessarily. and you made a comment about competitive advantage. This is something that Russ White and I argued with several times. And he has a good point. And the point that he makes is that, is that you're already an information company. It doesn't matter what you do. You're already an information company, because that's the way the industry is going. Like, you're going to compete on information, and information moves across your network. And so your network becomes part of your competitive advantage. And I don't disagree with the premise. I think that's true. I just don't think most people realize it, and I don't think it's 100%. Like, if you're a plumber, your network is irrelevant, right? Like, it really is not something. Your internal network is not something you need to have to be a competitive advantage. You're going to win based off of service and rates and all those other things. But if you deal with information at any level, the network is becoming a competitive, but it's not the topology. Right, the topology is not making you making a competitive advantage. Maybe it's your performance, maybe it's some of the tools that you have, but that's going to be the stuff that munges the data, that gives you something useful out of data, that goes through mountains of data and does something for you. It has nothing to do with what IP addresses you have, how you've connected your devices, and what your routing protocol is. And so I think this idea's got to go away. It's got to go away eventually. That there's a need to protect this, because it is the same thing literally over and over and over again. But like you said, there are exceptions to this rule. I've done work in a lot of industries where, why take the risk? I did a lot of work with like an oil and gas pipeline company, like for their, SCADA network, for the stuff that was all the controls and whatever. Like, they shouldn't release that map. Like, it's not that what they're doing there is anything dramatic when it comes to, it's not outside the norms of enterprise networking. But why take the risk for something that's a national security thing? So I understand NDAs around stuff like that, just so that there's not something there. But man, like, I don't know, like, if you're running a Walmart store, like, it's just a network. Like, I'm not really picking on Walmart. I don't know if Walmart shares their diagrams or not, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just what we do. And I agree with you that we'd be a lot better if we shared.
I mean, I just think, there's that old adage of, a high tide, raises all ships or floats all ships. If we share the information, we can all learn from each other, and that all of us become just a little bit better, and make the next network that we design and the networks that we operate even better than they are now. Without sharing that information, you have to learn from your own experiences, but learning from other people's experiences and designs accelerates your opportunity for learning. Again, it's sharing information. We build networks to share information, yet that's exactly what we don't share with each other, is the design of the network.
Now, you brought up, I think, some interesting use cases that do, I think, legitimately fall outside of this idea that everyone should share. You brought up cloud, right? Where cloud, their networking is a core part of their business. That's what they're abstracting. So the way that they do that, the way that they abstract it from you so you don't, and the way that they transport data, and the way that they integrate and do segmentation is literally part of their business model. Like, their engineering and ingenuity is what gives them an advantage over other cloud players. And so I understand why they don't always release it. But the funny thing is, some of the web scalers do give us a lot of information, not all of it, and usually only when it's advantageous to them, which completely makes sense. But we get a lot of information. I mean, I know Facebook has released some, like web scale designs that are amazing papers to read to help you understand like what it means to do networking at that scale, and kind of expand your mind when it comes to, let me get out of this idea that I'm doing the same thing over and over and over again in the enterprise space. What else is there? And they're not the only ones. I'm just thinking about one specific paper from them off the top of my head right now. But I also understand why those companies don't, right? Because if that is really what you're providing, I'm thinking about Equinix. Equinix sits at, cloud adjacent, carrier neutral facilities. They're providing a lot of really interesting features right now that not a lot of other people are doing. They're doing, dynamic on-demand VNFs and doing plumbing between cloud and whatever, and giving you all kinds of things that not everyone else can do. And they should hold on tight to that while they still can.
Yeah, but the difference is in Equinix, the network is their product.
That's correct.
They're selling that connectivity. That's their technology that they've developed. That's their IP. For the enterprise, the network is a highway for getting data in and out of your network. The network itself is not your IP.
Laz has an idea here. I like it. Yeah. It says maybe we as an engineering community need to create a place where people can build designs, make them public for commenting, and the most highly voted could be reference designs for others. Laz, go for it. Let me tell you, building communities isn't easy.
That's not a bad idea. I mean, he said maybe he says it as a joker, but that's not a bad idea to have, real community-driven reference technology that are shared and commented on and improved when necessary. Like, is there? I mean, I've been at this a long time. I haven't seen a website that has like the reference designs that are continually improved, commented on, community driven. If that exists out there, leave it in the chat. I'd love to pick it up. But where are the reference designs? And that's kind of what I'm getting at is, we're building all these networks. We think they're different. They're really not different. They're the same. But when we talk about them, I can't tell you anything about the network, and you can't tell me anything about yours. But if we're using the same reference design, then maybe we can start to have that conversation and say like, oh, well, I'm using a reference 1918, RFC reference 1918 or something. And therefore we have that common ground. Oh, you're building on that reference. Oh, okay, see, we're using 1920 over on our network, and just have sort of a different variations in the model. Then we can really then we all have the same baseline to go off of, and we can advance on top of that. I don't know. It's just a crazy idea, but I just get so tired of having these conversations, these really cool conversations with really cool people in the networking industry, that we can't actually share any details about our networks. You're just like, no, trust me, it's cool. I can't tell you anything about it, but it's cool. It doesn't do it for me.
I feel seen. Running a podcast, talking to people who do interesting networking things, and like that is so on the front page of every conversation is, can you actually talk about the stuff that you do? Like, because that's really important.
Yeah. To
come onto a audio only production to talk about what you do. So yeah. Maybe that, I don't know, maybe that's the idea. I think that I'm only dubious because you've got to have a maintainer and someone else, and I'll abstract the comments away so we don't call out people specifically, pointed out that hive mind is not always the best mind. Like, it's not always, doing it in a Reddit upvote style may not be the best way to do it, but having options to kind of review.
I was going to say,
I think the problem is context.
The option is important.
Yeah, the problem is context. So you can put that design out there, but I think about the times that reference designs or CVDs, like validated designs, whatever. Like, those are really great starting points. But I've always there's always been. Or not always, but there often are times where you need to kind of like go against the grain because of X, Y, or Z. Like, there's always some sort of abstract requirement that's just not accommodated for in the CVD. And so again, as a starting point, it's great. It's then how do you contextualize that for people so that they understand what it is that they're looking at and have conversations around it? Because it'd be great on this where we could bring up a design and have a conversation about it. This is where it's good. What about this? What about that? And have a conversation. And no, I'm not offering to do a series of shows on CVDs. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying though is I think that it requires a bit more than just throwing a piece of paper up on a screen. That's really not intuitive. Putting a diagram up on a screen with a picture of what you've done without some context about why you may have violated some tenets or some rules. Because I think about the best networks that I've had are the ones that have discipline, who create rules about the way they're going to go about things and then follow them. So that when you encounter a situation that may fall outside of it, you say, I won't do this. These are my priorities. These are the things I care about. You know what I'm saying? Like, having discipline about the way they deploy a network. And so I think, you have to understand the discipline behind the CVD. But it's an interesting idea. No. Brandon says, I'd like to share some of the designs we built for customers that we currently sell them as solutions, which is true from the VAR side. Like, when we build something unique or interesting, it becomes a product, right? That's something that we sell, right? That's interesting. Oh man,
That's very cool.
I think we should probably wrap it up. We're pushing towards 2 hours here, and I was expecting this to be like a half-hour thing. For us to test a call. This was awesome. So for those who are watching and have been commenting,
had a lot of fun.
This has been amazing. Absolutely phenomenal, the interaction. It's YouTube.
Are you on YouTube?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm using the whole social thing on the back end, so I get them all pushed to me.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to work out. We'll probably have to build a 0-tier network, is what I think, is so that you can have access, because it just spins up a web server on my machine, and then you can approve and see comments as well. So things to improve. Yeah, see, like I knew you'd be all in on that. But seriously though, like this was awesome with engagement. It was far more than I was expecting. We're going to be doing this regularly. We're going to try to get on a regular cadence so people know when we're going to be online. But you know that's hard just because of time zones and a lot of the other things that come with scheduling this. So I am going to be the thing I hate about YouTube. But if you're on our YouTube and you liked this, like seriously, like subscribe so you know when we come up, because it's not about I upload a video. It's about this live stream. I think that, you know, we're going to do this, and this was a lot of fun, and the more that people engage, the more it drives the conversation. This was absolutely fantastic. And also just
definitely make sure you subscribe and click the little bell so you get the notifications. And I think the important thing is, we said at the top of the show, just to reiterate it, wanted to be able to do a live stream that was very sort of relaxed and conversational, a little less structured than the formalized podcast, but we be able to extract some good content out of here and be able to upload those videos later at a time. So the only way to get this in the full format is to see it live. Otherwise, you're only going to get to see clips of this uploaded to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a Network Collective talk without 0-tier mention.
Yes, that's true. There's an unhealthy obsession. And I just want to mention that as well. I mean, a bunch of you that are here today obviously are already Network Collective members. We have built relationship there, and it's great to see you there. So we're just calling out, you know, Chris and Laz and a couple others throughout. You know, Donald is there as well. Support the show. If you're not, we talk about this stuff all day, every day. I think we have a Slack going on, and we talk about, you know, all of these networking topics in Slack, and it's probably one of the best communities I've been part of. So here's my shameless, you know, self-promotion and capitalistic moment. Come support our show if you like it, because it's not a lot. We're not asked a lot. It's like $5 a month. But the idea is it helps us do this. I mean, this stuff costs money to do, and so every little bit helps. And when you support our show, you get access to the Slack, which is just a huge extra bonus. And that's it. I'm done plugging. You want to find the rest of our stuff?
Yeah.
It's at networkcollective.com. And I think that's it. I think we're gonna be done here. So Tony, this was awesome. This was a lot of fun. And I think we'll bring us out. Anything else you want to say before we go?
Wait, there was something.
Oh, he's got it. Okay, now we're gonna wait in suspense.
Oh, I didn't write it down.
Oh
no. I forget.
Okay, so we'll have to hold that. You'll have to.
You know what? Let me tell you something. Yesterday was my birthday.
It was
Yesterday
your birthday.
was legitimately my birthday.
Happy birthday.
That's right. Yesterday was my birthday. Thank you so much. And +1 for the Network Collective Slack. I'm going to +1 that too, Chris. I want to say there has not been a more. There has never been a more condensed group of absolutely brilliant networking and systems engineers in one place that just love to nerd out on networking. It's an awesome place, and it's very helpful too. The guys and girls there we're always helping each other, and I've been on the receiving end of that help. So it's awesome being part of the community and the community Slack, and I recommend everyone get into it. But I wanted to say, yesterday was my birthday, and so we want to leave this very first live stream with anyone who's watching. We're going to play the guessing game. So yesterday was my birthday. If anyone knows how old I turned yesterday, you can tweet at me or at Network Collective.
Yeah, use the hashtag Network Collective.
Use the hashtag Network Collective. And go ahead and put your guess out there. And I'll say the first 2 people to get it right, we'll send some Network Collective swag out too, some stickers and stuff.
Yeah.
So look out for a DM. So my birthday was yesterday, and if you can guess how old I turned yesterday, the first 2 people to do so with the hashtag Network Collective will get some Network Collective swag.
I will say the closest 2. We'll say the closest 2. I don't know that 2 people are going to get it right, so we'll
You
put
don't
it
think
out.
so?
I don't know. Is it a power of 2?
All right.
People are already asking
Closest 2.
questions. Closest 2, we'll send some swag to. I mean, it's really funny. We got. I mean, I have probably 500 or 600 stickers. Like every time that there's a sale, I buy stickers because typically I go to conferences and I hand them out by the handful and people take them and whatever. With COVID, there hasn't been conferences, but I have kept buying like there is. I don't know why. It's just a habit now. Every time the sale comes along on Sticker Mule, I go and I buy stickers. And I've got some other swag as well. So yeah, definitely chime in. But it's got to be Twitter. We've got to be able to follow it. So Twitter, hashtag, and a number. A bunch of people will be wondering why people are hitting up Network Collective with just random numbers. And if you try to brute force it, you'd be disqualified. Like it's gonna be your last guess. Let's just put it that way. Sound good?
I like it. Very cool.
Other
Thanks,
restrictions may apply, and whatever other legal things may need to show up there. So, but no, we'll do our best to get swag out to you. All right. Is there an API for your age? I love it. All right. On that note, I think we're gonna head out. So thanks again, and we'll see everybody soon.
See ya.